evening, everybody. Welcome to 2022's House of the Year. And tonight, we're at the Building Stories event, which we're showcasing the winning prize and the winning house. I'd like to introduce the panel tonight, but before I do that, I want to have a little poll in the audience. So how many architects in the room? God, you're so quiet. I need to hear you. How many architects in the room? Woo! Brilliant. How many artists in the room? Woo! Okay. How many others that do other things? No? Yeah. All right, I still say the architects win, so brilliant. So, it's great to have such a diversity of people in the room tonight. And we'll be discovering this winning house, the RIBA House of the Year 2022, which is designed by David Kohn Architects. So the RIBA award goes to What an Off House Design, and it celebrates the architecture of today. So the architecture also celebrates innovation in home design. So this house is supposed to be the postmodernism of housing, okay? Well, we'll find out later. So I'm Christopher Adelaide. I'll be presenting tonight. And I'm going to be taking tips from my friend Kevin MacLeod, because he's done this for many, many years. He couldn't come tonight. So I asked Kevin, when are you retiring? You know, give me a chance. So no, I love Kevin MacLeod. He has clearly shown us how amazing homes that we all are wishing to live in and we want to afford can be built for ourselves. So I've come here to take some tips tonight, definitely. But we have to also commend the amazing shortlist that was here within the awards as well. So I'm just going to name them, and if you know who they are, just give them a little cheer as well, because to make the shortlist is just as amazing as winning, but of course the winning is the best prize. So let's give a round of applause for the Seabreeze, which is East Sussex coast. Round of applause, please. The Dutch Barn, West Sussex. The Muse House Deep Retrofit in West London. The Surbiton Springs, Southwest London. The Suffolk Cottage in Suffolk, and the Library House in East London. And of course, the winning one, which is the Red House, which we'll be seeing tonight. Of course, the building is set in rural Dorset, and is a reference, and this is by David, he says this, the Red House kind of gives a nod to kind of Louis Kahn, the James Sterlings, the Piero Portalunghis, and many others. They're going to talk about this tonight, so I'm not going to take the show, okay? So once they come on, they'll give you an example of what they've done and how they got to this house. So what are my feelings about the house? Well, I think it's smiling in every direction. Even the upside down is smiling, right? Even the semicircles, the upside down semicircles are smiling in every elevation. So, for me not to clash with the house, I've worn yellow. But to post some homage, you can see my trainers, 1, 2, are made of red and green. So tonight we're going to see a lot of red and green. I'm going to welcome up Taro, who was one of the judges. Can we give a round of applause to Taro, please?
Good evening. Thanks for joining this event.
Yes. Welcome, Taro.
Yes.
So Taro runs his own architectural practice, and I'm sure you saw him on Channel 4. He made it. I didn't. I don't know what happened.
I saw my face here. That's weird.
So Taro.
Yes.
You got a chance to basically see every house selection. You got to review them, sit in them, peer through the windows, and live a little of the clients' lives. How did you come to award the house? Come on, give us some juicy bits.
Yeah, to rate the house, yes. Obviously, we spend a lot of time and then debated. But as we realized this house is the one that we most debated, so like until the end. So that's kind of went to the award. So we thought this is important that a building house that can initiate discussion more than any other houses. And I think people have different opinions, and some people say, oh, this is a bomb, or this is that, which is good, which is we think it's necessary, rather than, House of Year, I don't know which year, I don't even remember. Or the something that I don't like that house, but I still remember. That is better, in our brain. Kind of like a yum and yak and ma. But, whether yak and yum, me is kind of a sort of a, indifference.
So created lots of fantastic discussions
Yeah.
that we're going to
Yeah,
hear
okay,
tonight.
okay.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
put it this
exactly,
way, yeah.
Exactly. But we've got to discuss the sheep. You know, there's a load of sheep.
Yeah.
That's my favorite image I've seen. I don't know if you've got the RIBAJ journal where you see the sheep. What was your favorite bit about the house?
Actually, I really love this structural rainwater pipe, which support the porch. That's the genius. Sorry, no. Yeah, it's house is compact, and then still looks very ordinary. Originally I said banal, but changed it to ordinary for the comment. And then, but it's really eclectic. That house speaking to you in a different level. So, Juncker, he was sort of, oh, I love the house. This house looks like smiling, which is one way of communicating. But then another way that, if we look at the plan, there's a bits from, Smithson's and then, James Starling and all kind of stuff we can see, faces like, John Haydock, So it's you can communicate it in several levels, which is also important that we discover more when we see. So we glad we meant to see, because some of Julie didn't think it's good at the beginning, but it's being convinced once it visited. So the one building that actually it's better, better than photo, better than the images or
When you
videos.
see it, when you see it real.
So I think this is a really important bit that actually house is to live. So building to
Well, you have burning questions, I know, for later, and Taro will be part of the question and answer session. So write them down, remember them. So we're going to welcome up, of course, this show for tonight is, of course, David and Jennifer are going to come up on stage. I'd like you to raise your hands with a loud round of applause to David Cohen Architects. And Jennifer, who heads the housing and interiors team at David Cohen Architects. Come on stage, you two.
Thank you.
Give you a little handshake. Sorry, I've got that nice to meet.
Very nice. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, congratulations on your win, both of you. David, you're not running away already. It's too early. Okay, so just congratulations. I've one question to ask. What is the RAL colour of that green? You don't know, David. You've forgotten.
I depend on Jen for numbers.
6037.
That was quite quick. She doesn't want anyone to know. All right. 6037. That's my phone number. Okay. So with no further ado, I'm going to get off stage. You've had enough of me for now. And you're going to talk about this beautiful house and give us some inside knowledge. So please, the stage is yours. Round of applause again, everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay.
You've got it here. Do you want to stand this way?
So, hi everyone. You can hear me okay? Yeah? Thank you all for coming. Absolutely delighted to be here. So, a big thank you to the RBA for putting on this event, to the jury for choosing the house. And I think I should say a very special thank you to the other people in the photograph, Stephen Freeman and Edward Turner, the clients who are here. I won't get too soppy, but they genuinely believed in us all the way through and have continued to do so. We're currently working with them again on an art gallery, as Stephen is a gallerist, and believing in us helped us do our best work. So a huge thank you. You were wonderful to work with. And also to Jen, who was the project architect. And if that wasn't enough, I can tell you that Jen is also currently an RIBA Rising Star. And that accolade was for being an associate in our practice. She's been the longest standing employee and has driven a lot of the change in the business and is now one of the exemplary leaders, both inside the business and I think in the industry at large. So thank you for your contribution, and I'm going to hand over to you to start one of 4 short stories we've put together about the house.
Thank you, David. Yeah, honoured to work on such a project. So I'm going to start with a visit to the Red House, which is illustrated with photographs by Will Price and Max Creasy. We start with looking at a map of the site, which you can see the plot straddles the farm track, and the narrow house kind of sits between this lane and a field. And looking at the plans, we can see on the ground floor, the interiors are kind of divided by these cores, which are seen to be toilets, pantry, a lift, and the staggered enfilade kind of connects all the spaces. And along the first floor, a single corridor connects all the rooms. So we start the journey through the agricultural landscape of North Dorset, and we catch a glimpse of a red house through a field gate. As we approach up the lane, a blank gable emerges over the hedges, which as we get closer looks familiar yet slightly strange because of the exaggerated eaves, the overly graphic brickwork, and bay windows, square windows, and even an oval window. Stepping back in the lane, part of the elevation is revealed, and the green window frames, which a moment ago looked comfortable in the landscape, now pop in the sunshine, and the gutters appear to hold up the oversailing roof. An opening emerges in the hedge, and a gate invites you in, with sounds inside escaping from the odd array of windows. Once inside the gate, a round arch carves into the building, creating an apse where a bench seat invites you to remove your wellies. And as you peer through the porthole window in the front door, it opens, and you're presented with this contrast in the interiors. The furniture setting defines the different spaces, and as you take off your coat, you notice some Shrigley prints in the background. Or are they original? As you turn around, you see the sweeping staircase which hugs a concrete wall that forms the bay of the house. The timber balustrade wraps up like a ribbon into the ceiling. Turning left, you enter a room. Behind the corner, out of sight, you hear a baby grand piano playing music, and you know it's the music room. Beyond, it overlooks the garden, or is it a meadow? Outside in the meadow path, you look at the house. It looks back at you. As you come back inside, spaces stagger off the corridors, and a chair beckons. This seat opens into a vast bay seating area, and behind, you can hear cooking. The utilitarian stainless steel surfaces contrast with the marble, and the cream Aga oddly blends in with the birch ply. A room bookends the plan at the end. The geometry of this space you're not sure of. Is it square, or is it round, or both? The view outside is covered by a canopy that provides welcome shade from the midday sun. As you get outside, you wonder if that gutter really is holding up that roof, and if the bow tie shape reflects the bay of the window, or is it cut to maximize the view from inside? Back inside, down the corridor, you find the cloakroom, where the overwhelming tires remind you of the brickwork outside. And after you wash your hands, you approach the staircase. The timber balustrade that lines the stair invites you up, and you've placed both hands firmly on each handrail. And as you glide up, you wonder if it was intentionally obstructing the window. At the top, you look back, where the roof intersects the curved bay, making the volume clear both flat and round. Behind you, a study opens up, with a window overlooking the lane, where you can overhear passers-by. From the corridor, a lift opens out, inviting anyone upstairs. At the end of the corridor, the house splits in two, with two doors angled to reveal two bedrooms, each with their own view onto the landscape, and with their own coloured ensuite. Back along the corridor, the ceiling seems to drape down the walls, and you realise this single corridor has another layer. This part, a barrel vaulted section, is flanked by a bedroom and a laundry room, but at the end, you're enticed by the view. Here, the ceiling rises, propped up like a tent, and 3 windows overlook different viewpoints and provide welcome vantage points for this bedroom come private sitting room. One window particularly intrigues, and as you get closer and you lay your head down on the bed, you realize it's actually not oval, it's a perfect circle, a cylinder bisecting the wall, creating a perfect circular view of the sky. As you close your eyes, you wonder if it's the same window you saw outside, a strange oval creeping towards the bay.
Thank you. So the second short story is about the beginnings of the design. We called it Imagining a Red House. And I mentioned before that Stephen Friedman is a gallerist, and we met over a decade ago to work on an extension to his gallery. And this is one of the first, this is Iran's work, De Esposito Spirito. And I think it's a great installation to show off some of the things that the architecture is trying to do, which on the first appearances is fairly modest. It's primarily creating the right proportion to the room, so the given height of the ceiling is best met by the width of the walls that we were able to set. And then a huge amount of work, invisible work, has gone into all of the air supply and extract being in the web of the steels. And what I love about working with art dealers is they really get into this stuff. You know, it really matters to them, and the quality of the space for showing art is directly proportional to the degree to which the proportions and the details support this white cube. It's a very simple plan, and all I'm talking about is the choice of that width of room and then where all the services could go. But if you imagine there's huge ductworks and plant that's invisible, that's getting from the front of the facade to the back of the building to achieve that. And that was the beginning of a fantastic working relationship that's gone on since. And at some point, they asked if we could also look at a house in Dorset. And at that point, we'd done several house projects. And the reason I'm showing them is there's something about the plans of the houses and the plans of the Red House that I think is something of a kind of piece of research, if you like, over several years through several designs. The house on the left is in rural Norfolk, Stableacre. This is an apartment in the Gothic Quarter in Barcelona in the 19th century apartment building. And this is a refurbishment in North London and an extension to a 19th century semi-detached house. And it's really the plans that I want to talk about. And it's about the relationship between the rooms in which, in all of these buildings, it wasn't the intention when we started to do this, but it's turned out to be a central concern. There are no doors. The floor is completely flat throughout. So as a kind of on the question of accessibility, which I think we're going to talk quite a bit about later on, all the houses are incredibly accessible, and another dimension of this is an interest in making distinctions between more public and more private rooms without the need for the conventions of a door, of actually breaking up spaces. So the corners between this room and this space are what drives these changes. And here you can see, looking from those entrance rooms into the large hall of the living room. And also, in each case, there are these little idicules, which is something else that keeps recurring in the work, which is an interest in making smaller spaces within larger ones, so that all of the projects have a certain nested quality where there's something quite intimate at the smaller scale, and then other spaces, and each of them ideally have some kind of social function. I suppose here, these I guess, were very common in Roman houses. They would have had household gods in them. Stuart, who was the client, he kept his keys there. The house in Barcelona, the apartment, again, it's for two families. It was a pied-à-terre. One family actually owned a kind of tower of accommodation here. The other one had a terrace here. And the separation between their two private worlds was this corner. And that's what they shared. And again, so it's something simple about everything being accessible and open, and what can we do to create different degrees of privacy. And this is the interior. You can see in a mirror there around the corner to the other family's terrace, and that's the shared table. And the tiled floor changes colour from green to red around the corner to further accentuate that difference. Ooh. And then the last precedent, if you like, this kind of journey of different ways to try and make single spaces into multiple ones. This quite small, simple extension, the structure wasn't necessary. There's two columns in order to create this difference. You could have done the same job with half the structure. And here you can see that the dining room is separated from the kitchen by this kind of colonnade that is purposefully architectural beyond its structural requirement. So, with all those things buzzing in our heads, we were invited to this part of Dorset, and the views are incredible. I think they spent a long time trying to find a plot with such views. The house, I think it had grown over time. It had this predominantly long, narrow plan. I think Edward is going to say something about why they didn't keep it. But nonetheless, a lot of the characteristics of the building as we found it went on to inform the design. And another key brief requirement was that there would be a lot of storage. And this is a house designed by the Smithsons, in which they had this kind of provocative house, I guess, a kind of critique of consumerism, perhaps, but also the reality of contemporary life, which is we live amongst things, and all of the domestic spaces would have access to a kind of store in the centre. So that became a driving dimension of how we would adapt this idea of plans, these open plans, to the new site, this long, thin building. And unusually, I think they'd spent quite a few years working with different architects, and so there was some impatience, I think, and they said, please just draw us a plan. So normally I would not do this. We'd go through years of testing the brief before we'd draw anything this committed. But on this occasion, we drew these plans, and the house has not departed too much from this. And I think the next few slides are going to be about the architectural references that we discussed in the office whilst interrogating this initial intuitive plan. And I think the things to see in the plan, Jen's already touched on. It's this central spine, these bays that are about reaching out to the landscape, and then these cores, which, thinking back to the Smithsons' provocation, house all of the objects of day-to-day life. Now this is a Bailey Scott house in the Lake District. I had the good fortune to go recently. Stunning views again. And now this, you might think, that is the main room. Isn't it stunning? But in fact, that is this space. So I'm really interested in these small spaces that are often appended to larger ones, which was very favoured in arts and crafts houses. And I think if one's kind of pleasure-seeking, design-wise, there is the question is, why isn't more of the house these little niches? Could you make an architecture that is just aggregating these special moments? And then I looked at drawings of Alder van Eyck's around, I guess, an idea of a bay, but here the bays are being aggregated. So there's this sense of could you have something special many times over? Could you have a kind of pleasure-seeking architecture? And this is the Sonnenbeck Pavilion that came from those early plan studies. And for me, if you put this in the context of, say, an arts and crafts house, this has a modernity that is, very provocative. But arguably, the shifts between them aren't so far. So the plan evolved from this linear building to rooms with bays that address the landscape, with these cores that provide the kind of support that service them. And then the question arose of to go back to these plan studies, how do we create this very open feel whilst introducing appropriate degrees of privacy? And that's moves like just subtly shifting these deep thresholds so that you both see the length of the house, but only obliquely and occasionally, and that you can occupy it all at once for an event with friends, or you can have several things happening simultaneously. And all of it is accessible at once. And there's a lift here to ensure that you can get upstairs equally accessibly. In conclusion, there are some operations to the house that I think, again, are about making it more ambiguous, a little more unknowable. And an example of that is, at the end, we introduced a fireplace. This is the bay window that looks out to the garden. And by connecting this angle for the fireplace to the bay window, and because of the proportions of all the walls, to go back to that early discussion about the gallery, the room starts to have some kind of rotational symmetry. It's no longer the end of the house. It now is something that's inviting you to address this orientation, which is model. It's interesting, the orientation of the photograph is very much about this relationship, which you see here. And last, I think there were some things that were a surprise and a joy that allowed us to then connect to other architectures that we're interested in. The fact that that bay window, when you joined it to that kind of cut off the corner for the fireplace and connected it to the roof, you have this sense that the ceiling is draped, which reminds me of this Schinkel interior for a fabric room at Charlottenhof. The bricks, I'm going to say more about that in a moment. I'm going to hand back to Jen. The bricks we'd used before on the Red House, and we've been experimenting with different brick orientations. And eventually, that change in direction highlights these different cores that run through the building with the storage. So that this character, this kind of contemporary character of the building is expressed in the facades. So I'm going to hand over to Jen for the third story.
Thanks, David. So building the Red House, it wouldn't have been possible without an amazing team, and there's a few people I want to pay particular thanks to. So the contractors, Ken Biggs Contractors. So we've got Andy Nichols in the audience here, tidiest site foreman I've ever met, and who managed a really skilled team of craftspeople, and Ross Mallon, very patient contracts manager who had to deal with us changing the design even after it had been built. And also Tom Whitaker, former colleague, I think I can see in the background, who spent hundreds of hours kind of dedicated to this project and the drawings, some of which I'll share now. So we started on site in July 2019, and we spent quite a long time just looking at the ground. There was many problems with digging the foundations. Apparently green sand is a problem, causes trenches to collapse. But eventually, after a piled foundation solution, we poured the slab, which was 7 degrees from the original design, thanks to Todd Longstaff-Gowan, who recommended we make this shift to open up the gardens, which was the right idea. And finally, we could lay the first brick. But before anyone could do that, there was a lot of work in painstakingly setting out every brick, every block. This is one of the drawings looking at all the block work. So because all the block is exposed in the interiors, every block kind of mattered, and we set out the rooms proportion to block sizes to try and minimize any odd cuts that would annoy people. And this alternating brick bond, the soldier and stretcher course, that, as David said, relates to the cores within, created another headache to solve, especially as we chose this lovely red clay brick that is thrown and has a kind of handmade and traditional quality, and is also imperial sized. So anyone knows blocks are metric, and they're designed to work with metric bricks, so 6 bricks to a block. An imperial sized brick is slightly larger, so when you start laying them in a soldier course, especially because you don't have the forgiveness in the mortar tolerances, you quickly lose alignment with your blocks inside. One of the challenges was in the setting out of the bricks and the blocks. We drew sections through the walls, setting out the bricks and blocks vertically in courses, and trying to work out where the windows, which bridged this cavity between the two, would fall, and where we had to kind of make this alignment work. And our solution was to introduce this deeper timber sill, which you can see on the right-hand side. And when painted, it's almost imperceptible. Finally the bricks could be laid, followed by our, lots of drawings that were done to convey how they should be, setting out each bay with soldier courses on the bay, kind of working really nicely to create this curve, but also requiring this special mesh reinforcement on each bed. And also giving the headache of creating load-bearing round arches to form this apse. And also header surrounds and carving this oval for a solid masonry wall, which I'm still not sure how they actually did that, but... and there were numerous other specials, so this is one of the drawings that convey all these different types of specially cut bricks to form the different geometries of the building and the different surrounds and the different coursing. And this includes details like the chimney, where each course of the brick is kind of set back by millimeters to get this tapering effect. And also the brickwork provided these additional details. So in this part of the roof space, it actually houses a large bat roost for a diverse population of bats, which apparently need very different doorways into this space. And so you can see here, there's one of these little openings in the brickwork, which provides the bats into this kind of luxury penthouse roof, which I'm still not sure if they've actually moved in yet. No one can go in. And also along the long elevations in the soldier courses, which you won't be able to make out, but within there, there's also these roosting boxes in the cavity. And also along the roof, those vents are actually nesting boxes to get access into the loft and providing additional space. The roof also provides another purpose with these overhanging eaves. It addresses the local climate in Dorset, where you're constantly experiencing the rain and then the sunshine, but especially the kind of the summer sun, when it's high in the sky. These 1.2 meter deep eaves provide welcome shade in the house, and the narrow plan actually provides just good cross ventilation across all the rooms. And the deep walls as well, the masonry walls, provide a really good thermal stability in the house. And when we were filming House of the Year, and Damien was there, this was actually, if you can remember, that hottest day of the year back in August, and the house was delightfully cool. And here we see Jesse, one of the bricklayers, in the shade of those eaves, describing how much he loved building the house.
So I'm going to conclude with a very short story, which is more about raising some questions. What are the red houses? We called it the Red House. It's not the first Red House. Arguably, this is the Red House. By Philip Webb for William Morris. It's a National Trust house now. You can visit it. It was considered radical in its day because it was all made of one material. It was all made of red brick. And it looks like it's made of many things, but it was made once. And that was shocking to contemporary audiences. And would you believe it, there is more red brick in this part of Dorset than anything else to clad buildings with. And we know because we did a survey of every building within 1 kilometre and tallied up how much red brick there was. So, what is it that makes it so red and so bricky that you'd call it the Red House and that it seems to challenge people? I think it's, the original Red House has become part of a kind of story of domestic architecture in England. And I think we're interested in that question of what makes things memorable or remarkable in the sense of they become part of a story of domestic architecture. And this is a painting called The Red House by Kazimir Malevich, who's perhaps more famous as a suprematist artist for doing The Black Square. This is not so abstract, it is a house, but it is a house that's looking at you. It is very frontal. It has a face, it presents itself. It doesn't take much, it is a red square with a small black roof, but there is something in this painting that I think has something to do with the 19th century Red House, and that is possibly the thing that evokes a certain sense of it confronting you. Oops. And I will raise this because I'm hoping it's going to come up as a question. We are interested in, is it postmodern? Not because we think we're postmodernists, but because, and this is Charles Drenk's map of 20th century styles, clearly we think that all of this is available to us today to make new houses. Does that make us postmodern? I don't know, but I think that certainly the whole question of the use of history, contemporary architecture, is something that we're very interested in talking more about. As to the question of housing, and lots of red houses, does our Red House have anything to contribute? I think it does. That's also an interesting topic of discussion that we may pick up on later. But I think I want to finish on this image, which is, this is what this Red House is about. And it's about these spaces for social occasions. The architecture is very much background, and it's life that is foreground. And on that point, we're going to end our presentation, a little over time, I'm afraid. But Edward. So Edward is our client with Stephen, and Edward's going to say something of his experience. I'm glad it's some time in the distance, but please come up. So
thank you very much. Thank you, Jennifer. I really never thought we would get to this stage. We built this house for our own purposes, and we wanted to just be authentic and not be slaves to current public opinion or taste. I'm really delighted that all those decisions and that investment of time has been vindicated. So this is us. We are in our 50s, and we've had our life, living our lives the wrong way around. So career first, then one child, and that does affect the way that you think about life. My husband is from Canada, art dealer Stephen. I was an accountant for 30 years, and we have always loved the English countryside. We absolutely love National Trust houses. We go to places like Eltham Palace. We have just absorbed lots of different influences from houses and know what we like. And one of the things we realized is that the reason we love old houses and National Trust houses is because you can read their purpose through the materials that were chosen and the design decisions that were taken however many centuries ago it was. And so we really tried just to strip back what it was we thought we liked and just look at all materials objectively and look at and think about the role of the house in the countryside. So it was really essential for us that the house had a purpose beyond our own needs. It needed to reward passers-by, just as when we're walking on footpaths in the English countryside, we love coming across follies or interesting houses, or a house where, you know, there's the date, 1797, you know, carved out in brick there. It's just telling you something. It doesn't need to tell you that. It's just giving you a little reward and makes your journey more interesting and adds to the sort of layers of English history. So that might sound like a very sort of grand, lofty ambition. We didn't quite expect the house to sort of generate quite the range of views that it did. But, you know, I think it's better to be talked about than not talked about. So this, when we'd been looking for a house for ages, and I wasn't terribly keen on having two bases, you know, London and the country. Stephen being North American, this was normal. And I think just sort of dragging our heels actually meant that we took time to find the right place. So this house had not sold for quite a while, even though it had appeared in a feature in the Daily Telegraph of 10 houses across the UK, where the title was "What Price for the View?" So houses where the house was actually all about the view. And with this one, we discovered why it was that people didn't want to buy it. And the reason is this. So this is a map painted by an artist neighbour of ours, Phyllis Wolfe, and it shows our house in the middle, so about here, and two settlements, a settlement here and a settlement over here, and the roads actually go around the outside, and this map is, like all maps, is political, so the hierarchy has been changed so that roads and footpaths and bridleways are all exactly the same, and that actually shows you how people would have travelled. So everybody would have gone from you know, this settlement to that settlement right through our property. So we are actually at the intersection of multiple footpaths. And actually our house, the garden, is bisected by this road going up here. And if you looked at it on Google Maps, you'd say, well, I'm not going to buy that. You know, that road is 10 feet away from you know, our front door. And actually, when we got there, the experience was different. So we were persuaded to go and have a look at it. And as you came up the lane, you had this sense that you were leaving civilization behind you, and you're going off-grid, and that very soon you'd get stuck. And actually, that was a really good feeling. It was supposed to be an antidote to city living, and then there was the house. So you saw the front side. This was the rear. And on this shows you perhaps why we chose not to keep it. So this probably sort of dates probably from the 1920s, but it's a flat-roofed red brick extension, and then everything to the left of it is made of sort of concrete Bradstone, so an artificial stone. I grew up in Bath, and the idea of living in a house with artificial stone did not appeal to me. And that was a very personal reason, and also it would have been very difficult to fix the problems of the house, and certainly not able to make it accessible very easily. So that was when we moved on to new build options. This is the original house as it was in 1880. So the front of the house did not look like this at all. It had been altered multiple times, windows put in different places, rendered on top of the red brick, and repointed in a hard cement. Plus, of course, the whole of the first floor had been changed and the roof changed as well. So that was, even though it would have been very attractive, that was not an option for us. So we then came on to thinking about, so who do we appoint as an architect? And we'd started with talking to a conservation architect and other people with different suggestions, including things like rerouting the road which goes through the middle of the plot. And actually, I'm really glad we didn't do that, because it was the restrictions of the plot that actually led to an interesting design. If we had made it square, then we would never have achieved the sort of the respect for a Dorset verge house that we did achieve. So this is the Villa Necchi, which you architects will probably recognise. And I sort of happened to see, and just subliminally, I liked the organisation of storage. So when you're older in your 50s and you've spent your time living in a flat in London, you never have enough storage for all the things that you've accumulated and all the furniture that your parents want you to inherit, which they think is important for you. And then you spend years paying to store it before you eventually sell it for far less than it costs you to store it. So we wanted to avoid that. And the great thing about the new house is that we do not let anything over the threshold that we don't need. So that was influential. And when appointing the architect, one thing I want to say, which I think is really important. So I worked as an accountant, and I know what it's like having ungrateful clients who don't understand what it is you do and why your engagement letters have so many clauses and why you won't do certain things and you will do others. So there is always this expectation gap between what you as an architect can do and what a client wants you to do. And I think we sort of had to get our heads around that. But I think we really committed to having a good relationship with our architects. And it was important that we took responsibility as clients for making sure that the team was motivated. Otherwise, I think we didn't want any of the team to sort of be fearful of going to a meeting because they said, oh my God, I haven't done X or Y or I've missed something. The fact is, there's a lot to track, and this was a moving feast. So we just made sure we had a very safe space, and there was the one moment where we realized this relationship was going to work, which is when Todd Longstaff Gowan, the landscape architect, came along sort of after the plans had been submitted and approved, and took one look at the plan and said, well, the whole house needs to be shifted 7 degrees. And I knew that as a professional, the team would probably be cowering and thinking, my God, the client's going to sort of say, right, you pay for the new planning, whatever it is. And David just looked at it and said, wow, that's brilliant. And I knew at that moment that actually that we could together create the best house that we could. So that was really essential, and we just committed to making that relationship work and making sure that all the team knew that we valued them. Though I know that it might not have seemed it at some times, but we genuinely did. And then obsession with storage. So this is the house now. I decided, right, we're not having best and everyday anything. This is ordinary Athena hotelware you can get from any good catering supplier. It doesn't matter if you break it, you will still be able to get it in 10 years' time, and it will still only cost you 80p a plate. And the thing is that your guests will not worry about breaking anything in your house. It will help them relax. And also, when you have everything rationalized like that, you do not have this expanding need for storage where when somebody gives you something, I'll very honestly say it's, sorry, but it's not part of our standard range, no. That can go to London. And then how the house is used every day. So this is us, this is my family. One of my 2 sisters is taking the picture. We have me, Mo, guardian to Emily, sister, 2 nieces, brother-in-law, and my husband, eating something really healthy and delicious, I'm sure. And this picture shows actually the importance of food in the family house. So a round table is not hierarchical. It's very easy when you have older parents and a small child. The small child is not going to be at the head of the table. They're always going to have this sense that they're not important. Everybody has equal importance here. Immediately outside the windows, you see the lane coming up, and that interaction between the occupants of the house and passers-by is essential. So the house was an unexpected joy during lockdown. We moved in during one of the lockdowns, and we found that we were better connected with our business in London than we were when we lived in London, and we were more relaxed, and we were able to think about things more clearly. The house was very decluttering, and actually we really welcomed our neighbours coming for walks with their dogs or on horseback, and it might be that on a bad day you'd only get 1 or 2 people a day, but you didn't want to miss them. So that was essential, and otherwise it could be quite a lonely existence. And actually that bay window is rather like a sort of toll house window, and you can see from there right through to the back wall of the property, through the back window and back again. So I think that keeping the house like that was essential, and the positioning of the study was one of those unexpected moments of genius. So David had quietly just got on with everything, and we were sort of too tired by the time we were on architect number 5 to actually challenge or disagree with anything he proposed. So we just said yes to everything. I'm slightly exaggerating, but but then discovering that the study really worked, and you saw everybody coming, you'd never missed an Amazon delivery driver, just makes the whole place work. So that's how we use the house today. And when people visit the house, what they all say is this house has amazing energy. And they also say things like, it's really calm as well. And what I find going there, what we all find, is that it's actually very de-stressing because your mind is not cluttered by too many sort of confusing possessions around you. The purposes of each room are very, very clearly defined. There is a library, there is a music room, and you know what goes on in there, and you don't sort of allow crossover spillage of items from one room to another. The plain white walls, which they are sort of austere by some descriptions, or monastic, or ascetic at least. They do allow you to focus on the art that is on the wall, which can be inspiring, and they also force you to look outside and appreciate the green space that you have around you. You're very protected in this house, but you really want to go and explore the outside. We do not have balconies at first floor level that you can go out and sort of admire the view. You actually have to go downstairs and out of the door and experience the countryside around you, and that actually is how we want it to be. So that so the house should really sort of re-energize you mentally, and it does that absolutely brilliantly. So there are lots of genius moments in the house which we discovered only after we moved in. But one of the things is the downstairs storage room, of course, is not actually for storage. It is a transition space where there are always boxes you want to get rid of, something to go to the charity shop, and that is where it goes. It's not for permanent storage, and that's a kind of a wonderful thing to have. And cooking is, if you want children to grow up healthily, they need to understand where food comes from and how you cook it from scratch all the time. This is Emily at the age of 4, about to deal with about a couple of dozen mince pies or so at Christmas. And we won't comment too much on the hygiene standards applied there, but she's learning, should we say. And then other details on accessibility. So my parents both died from different degenerative neurological illnesses, and what happens is that houses become prisons for people, and they can't wait to move out, and they start to fear the stage in life where they will have to move out. So even when they're able to enjoy a house, they are worried about having to move out. And it just needs a few sort of design adaptations from an early stage. And we haven't designed the house to be a hospital, but it does cope with some of the things I can reasonably anticipate needing to deal with. So we have a lift, and it's not a small lift. It's a sort of good-sized lift. Doorways are wide. We don't have doors unnecessarily. We have rounded corners on work surfaces. If you're tall and you're always banging into them, that is not forgiving. We have door handles, very simple light switches, and Tom Whitaker, who's one of the team, did an absolutely amazing job, which we appreciate every time we use the house. The light switches are all in exactly the right place, and the light fittings, and they provide the right amount of light. One of those things which otherwise you'd just always be sort of kicking yourself for. And then this is something which I designed myself. It's not patented, so you are free to copy it. But it's a traditional estate gate. It's just a modern version of it, just simplified. But instead of having a catch, it has a sort of very high-powered magnet, and it self-closes. So again, if you're disabled or you can't use your hands or you're full of shopping, you can just bang it open and it will naturally close. And you need that in the country to keep the cows out when they come up and down the lane or they escape out of the field, which it happens regularly. So that's just a sort of a good example of the sort of accessibility features that we have. And then sort of on to the future. So we talk about the house having concern beyond the current owner's own needs. So it has an app which is for washing your boots and washing the dog, and It's also going to be visible from the lane so that you, and what we want to do is just at the top of it is have a mosaic which Yinka is going to talk about called Green Woman. And so it's obviously a well-known, well, Green Man is a very well-known concept. This is an updated version of it. And there will be holes cut in the hedge so that people passing by can see it. And again, that's partly to provide a bit of a draw. We want people to come and see us. We are going to make the stiles and gates immediately around us accessible, as they should be. So we're in discussion with the landowners and the council about that at the moment. And we already see how the lack of accessibility stops you from seeing people. We don't see a number of our neighbours because they can't cope with these styles. But if we didn't have a lift, Yinka wouldn't have been able to come and visit us, and my elderly relatives wouldn't be able to do so. And so if you know anybody who is disabled or elderly, then actually those features are essential if you want them to be able to visit you in your house. And then the choice of the green. So, I think with the house, we treated it, when we commissioned David to design it, we treated him like an artist, and you basically ask an artist to do something for you, and then you back off, and you let them design it for you. You give them free rein. You don't sort of employ them and then tell them what to do. And this picture sort of shows why we chose the green. I think that green is the right colour to offset that brick. And in the sunshine, where it has that sort of gorgeous orange hue, the green is playful and it's joyful. It's not meant to be outrageous, but I'd rather the house were outrageous than sort of silent in the way it speaks to people. But it's actually supposed to be happy and joyful, and I'd say objectively, I think that is the right green. And in that sun, when the sun's at the right angle, it picks out all the imperfections of the brick. The house just looks magnificent, particularly from this direction. And it's just a very happy place that we always want to be at, and it has just turned out absolutely beautifully. So that's really all I wanted to say about it. But thank you, David, Jennifer, Tom, Robin, but also Andy and Ross, who really did just a superb job. And Andy Nichols in particular, I want to say, when you have a site manager who cares about the house more than you do yourself, you know you're going to get a good job, and it was brilliant. So thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. And of course, Stephen. The passion of having amazing clients, right? We all need an Edward in our life. That's what we do, right? A big round of applause, please, again, for the talk. So now, you did mention Yinka in your presentation. So, where is Yinka? Yinka, could you hear me? Here he is. So Yinka, he's coming up. So we talked about accessibility, and he's going to speak a little bit about this house. The show must go on, of course. But this man is an artist of supreme color and joy. So Yinka has donned the fourth plinth in Leicester Square. He's rewritten the covers of the British Library books. He's showcased Headless Mankins, which he will discuss a little bit later. Is that not right, Yinka? How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. I'm not going to discuss any headless mannequins.
Oh, you're not showing it? All right, not tonight, not tonight. You can ask him that later. So, what we hope you to discuss tonight, of course, is the ability to navigate this world in your wheelchair, and of course, your love of art and architecture. So welcome, Yinka. So many questions that we've got to have tonight, but of course you're going to explain some. But how many books did you cover? How many patterns did you do? How much time did it take you to make that British Library?
Well, it's about, I guess, 6,000 books.
6,000.
Yeah.
Round of applause to that, I have to say. What an inspiration. Now the stage is all yours. And I know you're going to present. Have you got your clicker and everything? You're ready for action? Yep, brilliant.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to leave you to it. And Yinka is going to present some of his work. So please, a round of applause for Yinka Shunabadi.
Okay, so I have to say that, I'm gate crashing this party because it's actually the Red House that we're here to, talk about. But, you'll get to understand the reason why I want to talk about it, apart from the fact that I've known, Stephen and Edward now for about 28 years. And I'm a bit biased, I've worked with the gallery for a long time. But to my surprise, I did go and visit the house. And I actually realized, the power of architects and the power of designers. And the quality of my life can be made good or terrible simply based on what the architect decides to do. And for those of you who don't actually know my work, I won't go on for very long, I'll try and keep it short. So I'm not going to necessarily talk about my work. I want to actually focus on the problems that architecture can help us solve and how that has actually affected my own life personally and my own ideas and my own utopian ambition to solve some of the basic problems in the world. Now, within my own art, I address the history of colonialism, I address the issue of identity, and also misunderstandings and conflict. And I will go explore those things, first through my own work, and then secondly, how architecture has also enabled me to create space to try and solve some of the very basic human conflicts. And, okay, so can I go to the next image? And so, as I say, I'm not saying much about these works now. I'm just showing you some of the images and the way that some of the works are, my own way of addressing issues around, the legacy, if you like, of empire. So can we go to the next one? And the next image. And then the next one. And then the next image. And so that just gives you a sense of, what I do in my practice. So going from the gallery and then addressing art in the public realm. And okay, so we go to the next one. And so again, I talked about architecture and how architecture has enabled me to really think very deeply about some of the problems. Since my work was really about dealing with the legacy of empire and the impact on my own personal identity and also the issue of diversity in the UK. I also understand that many people do not have any idea or contact about Africa. They want to go, but they have no way to get there, and they don't know people there. And then, of course, the issue of cultural exchange and trying to understand each other. I decided then to create an artist's residency space in Lagos and also on the outskirts of Lagos. Now, I acquired this farm. It's a 54-acre farm. The idea is to address issues around conservation, climate change, and most importantly, food sustainability. But I wanted architecture that would address the climate. It's humid, it's hot. I worked with a Nigerian architect called Papa Omotayo. He excavated the soil here and created 40,000 bricks and to actually build the artist farmhouse here. And that's the building you can see there. Can I go to the next image? And so you can see the farmhouse, and it's actually, because of the material, and it's clay mixed with laterite, and it's surprisingly cool within this building. And the building is up on a hill, and you look down into this vast rainforest beyond. And we produce a number of crops there, cassava, tomatoes, peppers, papaya, and we contribute to local food sustainability. We also have artist workshops there, and the residency is multidisciplinary, and we launched the residency last year, and we did an international launch where we invited a number of people and to come to that launch. And so in Lagos, Lagos is a very busy capital city, and I worked with LC Owusu to design the Lagos building. The Lagos building, it's humid, it's by the ocean, and the idea is also to create a platform for multidisciplinary artists, researchers, scientists, curators, and we've done a number of residencies there. But this building, why are you moving the slides? Please don't. Okay, so now, all right, so the building we created in Lagos, it's a concrete building, and the reason for that actually is that because it's humid and it rains a lot, and also I wanted to actually merge Yoruba architecture. Yoruba is a tribe in West Africa, and I'm of Yoruba origin. And they would have a courtyard, and so in this case, the house would have a courtyard where the community would meet. And so in this case, we've turned the idea of that courtyard into a performance space. And also the house is inspired by, so it's a mixture of modernist architecture, particularly, Le Corbusier's Villa Savoye. The house has a ramp, because I use a wheelchair, and so there's a ramp on the outside of the house, and then there's a screen, and then behind the screen, the ramp is there. But can we go to the next image? Okay, so that's the image of the house there. And also, I wanted, so this is, the house has a gallery downstairs, and then 3 rooms for our residents, and then an apartment and studio for myself at the top. And because of the, the scarcity of land, we've only got 750 square meters there. I needed a therapy pool, and the architects decided then to raise the pool. So what you see on the left there, that's actually the therapy pool. But then there's a gallery downstairs. So can we go to the next image? So you can see the courtyard there that we use for performances. And also the galleries down there we use for exhibitions, lectures, and artists make work there. And so, but the interesting thing for me about the Red House is the fact that the house is completely barrier-free. And I was quite surprised to see, when I visited the house, I was actually told that there are no doors downstairs, but they did not have that feeling. I then looked again and thought, oh yeah, of course, there are no doors there. But then there's still this kind of sense of privacy within that. And so that's how architecture, I think, can solve some of the kind of fundamental problems, from the kind of social issues to just the sort of practical everyday use of the building. So can we go, is that the end? Yeah. Well, so that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. And then, of course, I should add that I have a commission, and I will be doing a mural for the Red House. Well, it's a mosaic, actually. But then it's around the idea of the green man. And the green man, I think, is connected to nature and rebirth. And Edward, so the green man, I mean, why green man? Because basically I'm doing a take on the green man.
Well, I think we were trying to find a figure which was really sort of rooted in the English countryside, and of course the green man who you see in carvings, sort of usually in religious buildings all over Europe, so actually predates Christianity, and it also represents our sort of ambiguous relationship with nature. It's very relaxing. It's very protective, but it's also a bit scary. We're not sure if we should be scared by it or not. And I think that ambiguity allows lots of readings. I think it's also ripe for reinvention. The green man has not always been a man, occasionally been a woman, not always been a sort of Caucasian green man. And I think, so Yinka's sort of draft design is a green woman with a black face, and for me that sort of represents our sort of universal origins from the African continent, and just requires you to just sort of challenge your assumptions about what is normal and what is good in life. And you could sort of read loads into it. And at a very simple level, it's familiar. That's reassuring, but it's also it's very sort of decorative, and with sort of oak leaves coming out of their hair and mouth, and I think you've got birds nesting in yours as well.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
We've taken it to the next level.
Yeah, yes. And Edward has asked me not to reveal too much and not to show the image, so that's why. So you'd have to actually go and see it.
Yeah, we definitely want people to come and see it.
Thank you very much. So, who would like to ask the first question?
Oh,
You say your name, so we know who you are.
My name is Gerda. I wondered about the absence of doors at the loos or the bathrooms. Were there literally no doors?
You'd have to explain. Yeah, that's one for me. You'd be pleased to hear there were doors on the loos. But I did say this was an ongoing research project, and you never know, the next house, we may push the boundaries even further. So watch this space. But I suppose it is, I think the conversation that we've been having since this commission and talking about working together on the house, which is very exciting, it has been really revealing also for us in that you weren't a client as such, but I think that the conversation around what you've enjoyed in the house overlapped a lot with what Edward and Stephen put down as a brief, and I think it's been quite opening for us as well around how straightforward it can be if you put your mind to it to make houses much more accessible, and that it doesn't have to compromise things like privacy or be able to have multiple things happening simultaneously.
Okay, can you tell me why architects are so useless at access?
Well, where do we start? I think why are architects so useless? I think that the conversations that we've had are a lot about the house, are a lot about living, and architecture isn't life, but architecture is the background, but obviously architecture makes what you can do possible. To what degree that is the focus of a lot of education, a lot of project direction design-wise, I don't know, it seems like it would be obvious, but maybe it's often sidelined for, I think the interesting thing when you've got the kind of Charles Jenks maps of styles, and when people ask us about reference, there is a presumption that all the references are purely visual and aesthetic, but in fact, a lot of them are functional, that have an aesthetic content. So in looking back at other houses, there are lots of houses that we looked at that don't have doors. I mean, it's not like we're the first people to do it. There's a whole history of them. But probably all of those houses also were quite visually arresting, and that's what people think is the point of interest. So it may be that it's also being able to see those functional things as part and parcel of...
Because also with an aging population,
Yeah.
we're all kind of potentially going to be disabled at some point. So I would think for that reason, it'll be taken very seriously.
Yeah, no, I think certainly there are a lot of buildings now for older occupants, volume-wise in the UK than they were, and I'm sure this is a huge growth area, yeah, certainly, for architects. That will, and that, I suppose with a brief like that, it's fundamental in a way that perhaps proportionally in briefs it hasn't been.
I think we sometimes question when Edward was always saying, we need a grab handle in the bathroom. Do you really need that? Can't you install it later? But you're always very insistent that anyone can benefit from having a handle in the shower. Or
Yeah, I think, and just to sort of come back to Yinka's points about architects being useless, I mean, it's what's your ability as a professional to listen to your clients and also to reinterpret their stated wishes to their actual needs, and then to incorporate them in design. I think that seemed to work absolutely seamlessly. I think we had so many conversations with people who said, you don't need to worry about a lift, and you worry about that when you get to that stage. Well, it sort of presumes that that's a long way in the future and that you'll have the time and resources to make the changes then, and also assumes that you have no friends who need it now. There's so much is wrong, but I think to be good as an architect, you need to be intelligent, have emotional intelligence, and also sort of a sensitive way of managing your ignorant clients and their inability to express themselves clearly, which is actually what sort of all good professionals should be doing. I'd say it's really about sort of communicating efficiently more than it is about having technical skill to answer the particular problem.
I guess Taro, being an outsider who went to see the house, what's your thoughts about accessibility?
Yeah, this is one of the things, we are quite impressed that are, just large corridor, which is comfortable and spacious, and then a lift is hidden away. And having a lift at this stage already, this is, future-proof. And the client is expecting to live forever, I'm not gonna use this. This is quite a rewarding job for architect to do, and then architect to deliver, and a great brief that somebody decided to leave this house. I'm not gonna sell this house. This is not for money. This is for my life. Therefore, you put the lift, and then it's gonna be aging population. This industrialization, and this really future-proof, and then therefore sort of sustainable, because house gonna be used the same way as long as the client lives. So especially great, but it's just an inception, and then also delivery is well done. It's sort of lift is. I didn't realize which was the lift, but it's, I had to open the door and then, okay, this is the lift. So it's so discreet, but it's this, accessible space is really accommodated part of the space and a part of the, dimension, which is, everything is not too big and too small, so staircase as well. That's another thing, we're quite impressed. It's the right scale. It's like nothing really overly done, but it's, everything cleverly done. So, again, this is dimension corridor, as well as, staircase, and as well as, furniture, everything. So this is, functionality as well as aesthetic, well executed, yes.
We've got any more questions in the crowd? No? Well, I've got one. What did your neighbours think when they saw it? That's to Edward, and I guess to everyone, because you've been there, but what's the insight?
Well, I mean, of course, when you sort of appear on something like Grand Designs, and everyone's watched your house go up, and you've had planning consultations as well, and you've got all your neighbours around, you're inviting people to express their opinions, and they're not shy. So we've had the full range from magnificent, the people absolutely love it, people, particularly Amazon delivery drivers, absolutely love it, and we've also had comments like immediate neighbours coming around the house, having a good tour of the whole thing and saying, what amazing views you've got. So sort of classic English sort of passive-aggressive communication. and also sort of, why did you choose that green? That was the other thing. And to which the rejoinder is, why did you choose that white? We sort of, there are practical reasons why you choose certain colours and aesthetic reasons why you choose others. But I think what's really surprised me is the sort of lack of sense of perspective that people have about their own taste and how it's formed and where those views come from. And what I like about the art world is that it requires you to address all these decisions really objectively. So I think that red and green combination, for me, when you look at the colour wheel, they're absolutely diametrically opposite and therefore seem to be the perfect match. But it's, if you ask people in the pub on a Friday night after they've had a couple of beers what they think of it, they're going to express a sort of really ill-considered opinion, but they've got the answer to the problem.
Brilliant, thank you. Any more questions in the room? I know we're going to be going to the back. We've got food, we've got drinks. So we'll have one last question. Come on, we've got one more in the crowd. There we go. Is there somebody over there? Brilliant. If you can stand up and say your name.
Hi, Nick Lyons is my name. Congratulations, everybody. I think it's a wonderful house. You've clearly, David and Jennifer and your team, you've clearly answered the client's brief, probably even surpassed what they could have imagined possible. But I just wondered what the thoughts or what the strategy was in terms of the heating and the kind of the things that are in the background. Is there a sort of sustainable strategy there at all? Or maybe that wasn't part of the brief, but I saw 2 chimneys. I wondered if they're just for fires or if there's something else going on that we haven't seen yet. Thank you.
Do you want me to say briefly?
I think we've got different... I can kick off and then... So, one thing that I was very interested in early on in the house was small windows and ordinary windows. So windows that... My sense is that if you were to caricature what is the best house of the year in any given year, architectural taste is for, the bigger the piece of glass, the better. The more invisible the frame, the better. And that definitely doesn't seem like it's heading in a particularly sustainable direction. So the ratio of window to wall in this house is tipped completely the opposite way. And there was quite a lot of thought given to how do you bring light in with much smaller apertures throughout the day so that you have decent changing daylight. And the walls are very thick, so I think there's a couple of thoughts on the systems that we installed and are going to install, and also there is Stephen Edward doing a study, I believe, around the use of the energy.
Yeah, I think so. We're doing a post-occupation analysis at the moment, but I think at the time, maybe at commissioning, there was uncertainty as to what the right kind of fuel source was. So instead of kind of making that decision at the time, we installed the infrastructure. So there's trenches to the carport and also to outbuildings at the top of the garden. And we're working on a future phase to develop those buildings and bring in heat pumps, photovoltaics. So, yeah.
I think so, with the first planning consultation we had with neighbours, we got such pushback on the roof. And apart from that, the roof is not sort of ideally aligned for photovoltaics. And I think also at the time, the technology was not seen to be perfect. So all I knew is that it was going to change. We couldn't really have photovoltaics there, certainly for aesthetic reasons. In terms of, I would have had underground ground source heat pump, provided we could have the horizontal systems, but the site was too difficult for that, and the boreholes were, at the time, not sort of efficient enough to make enough of a difference. And then the air source heat pumps, just the idea of having an air conditioning unit with a fan with the ball bearings going, sort of just outside when you go to the country for peace and quiet, was not a good solution at that time. So I sort of accept it's not perfect, but it is able to be adapted. I think the choice, in chimneys, again, it was important to have multiple fuel sources. So we do have, gas tank, we have electricity, we have 3 wood-burning stoves, and again, the appeal of that is, of course, that you're unlikely to be cold in winter, even when the power lines are down and you can't get LPG, for example. The disadvantage, of course, is that wood-burning stoves sort of go out of fashion, and there are sort of new regulations brought in about air pollution. So it is going to evolve. And also, we are people who do like fresh air. So the idea of a passive house where you're sort of sealed in and there's a sort of a system sort of whirring away in the background was not our kind of vision of a simple house with sort of simple, easy to understand doors and windows and fittings. So that was the reason we made those decisions. I think if we were building a house today, the design would evolve further.
How warm a house without heating this winter?
Well, some people complain the heat we have it at, but we keep it about 16 to 18 on underfloor heating, which is adequate for us. I think if it were ordinary radiators, you'd sort of feel you'd need to have it higher than that because convection sort of heating feels differently. But it's very zonable, and everything is sort of turned off when we're not in the house. So every single room is sort of separately zoned. It's all timed for every day of the week, depending on whether we're there or not. So it's sort of no more is used than we need to.
Brilliant. So, any more questions? Going, gone. Oh, no. Oh, that's £10 for you. Go on. We bring the microphone to the back.
Hi.
Let's stand up so we can see you. Yeah.
I'm called Lily. Hi. I just didn't want to end on an M&E conversation. It's such a fantastic project, and it's delightful and generous, both in obviously the ambitions of the client, which is fantastic to hear tonight, and in terms of the accessibility and in terms of the kind of pleasure in reference for all of us. I was thinking it's quite an architect's project in some ways, because we here from the RIBA are watching it, we're thinking, oh yes, Van Eyck and Sterling, and we see them all, and just the pleasure in that for us as a particular audience of this evening. I think I just wanted to say thank you for that too.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody who's here on the stage for taking their time to come here. We have to thank the RIBA for hosting it, for building stories, for all the people who are filming, the crew at the back. I want to give them a big round of applause. Without them, we don't have these events. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you to Yinka. Please give a round of applause. Thank you to David and Jennifer, the architects. Thank you to Edward and Stephen, wherever he may have gone. And thank you very much. That's it. Have a great evening.